Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Philline. I promised y'all I would be making these episodes more often. Anywho, I am tired. Um, First of all, my coworkers are basically all getting married, and it's a great time. I'm very happy for them all, but I literally I cannot. I'm just drowning in work because we had a team of four, then we had a team of two because two of them left. And then I was getting married, then my coworker was getting married, and then another coworker who is in the same team but like the other half of our team, so like they're not as much of a impact on me, but still it's just a lot of and also a ton of things are launching and I'm just I have a lot to do. And that's why I want to talk about burnout. And just honestly, I've been doing some reassessing the past whatever weeks. And my 1 month anniversary is already approaching, which is insane to me. I can't believe that. But just a lot of thinking about one, what am I going to do now with my time? Two, what is valuable to me, and also now that I'm not financially aiming for a goal, like what's next, lots of questions, but all these things, end of story, are things that I don't have to answer right now, or honestly even in the past, I don't know, in the next 3 months or whatever. I don't need to get to the answers, but it's still on my mind, what am I supposed to do now? Because you put your heart and soul into planning, and then out of nowhere you're done, and it's just it's like that feeling when you graduate or something, or you finish a paper and you just have no idea what to do after. And so naturally, the week after the wedding, I did nothing, didn't work out, ate all the food, whatever. And I feel okay, I had my fun, I had my relaxation, but what now? And I think a lot of things that I struggle with in general is just understanding that free time doesn't have to mean doing something, if that makes sense. Having free time is essential, necessary, and I've always had an issue with that, trying to tell myself that relaxing is okay. And I still have that issue sometimes. I feel especially this week, after a long day of work, the last thing I want to do is still stay at home and relax more, if that makes sense. Not move. So I think that's why the gym is so essential for me, which don't even get me. I haven't even been to the gym consistently since the wedding, but I'm being graceful with it, and I'm letting myself feel when I want to go. If I don't feel like going, don't force myself, but it's just things like that where I'm just I feel like I'm slowly getting into this spiral of work, sleep, repeat. And y'all know already, if you've made it this far with me, I don't sit well with doing nothing and being I'm not going to say lazy, because lazy is not the word. I just being complacent. I don't know. But because of that, I start to get itchy with questions. I start to be okay, am I going down the right path career wise? Am I putting my money in the right places? Am I making good use of the free time I have outside of work? And there's been a ton of stuff that I've been doing. Don't get me wrong. I still have to get reattached with music, and I feel I don't know why that's honestly, it's been the hardest thing for me to reconnect with. It's so weird because my whole life I was so and maybe that's why I was all about music growing up, and I think that I don't know, maybe that's just something I wanted to keep distant from. It's really hard. I think I'm also just the type to need a minute to reattach to things, if that makes sense. But anywho, so with my free time, now that I have it, or, I try to. It's been full of reading, and bruh, I know that there's a ton of girls that listen to my podcast, but like the guys too, quite honestly, the books that I've been reading is very outside of my usual scope of book genre, or like shows or general genre. I normally read like zombies or horror books or mysteries and thrillers and kind of like true crime books, but I've been reading Fourth Wing. Well, I read Fourth Wing. I read Iron Flame. It's so crazy. I'm like on my fourth book already, and like I just started rereading 4 weeks ago. It's just a lot. It's so good. I'm hooked. But Iron Flame, Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing is the first book to Iron Flame. Then there's A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's like, I call it ACOTAR at this point, but I am obsessed. For my book obsessed listeners, I cannot recommend it enough. And probably everybody has already heard this, but I finally hopped on the ACOTAR train, and I'm hooked. I can't stop reading about it. And guess what? I heard Hulu is going to be making a show out of that series. So hopefully they don't mess it up. We'll see. And I don't know. It's really like tricky when, streaming services pick up on a book series, because there's a lot that could go right, but there's also a lot that could go horribly wrong. And I'm just like, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure if Hulu is going to be doing a good job on that. So we'll see. But I think, is it Amazon or Apple? Another different service is picking up Fourth Wing, and it's just going to be exciting. I don't think it's HBO, because Max already has like the Game of Thrones and the House of Dragons, which by the way is coming up this week. There's a ton of new content coming out this week. So there's a new season of The Bear. The Boys came out, the second season. House of Dragons, since I already mentioned it, that's coming out this week too. And it's just a lot. And I have to juggle all that while like trying to finish my book series. But here's where I messed up. I bought the entire series on my Kindle. Don't do that. I don't recommend doing that, because when you're reading through the books, normally, like if it was just one book, okay, reading through on the Kindle, obviously like halfway through, you're 50%. Now, when you're reading a bundle, like halfway through the first book out of like, I'm pretty sure right now it's 5 books. I don't remember, but let's say you're halfway through the first book, you're only like 2%. And these books aren't short. They're not like short books. But don't get me wrong, Iron Flame and Fourth Wing, they were pretty hefty books. Like I'm pretty sure Iron Flame was almost like 1,000 pages on the Kindle. But anywho, it will tell you the percentage, but like the percentage of how far in you are into the bundle. And for somebody who likes to have like short-term wins, it's kind of like, I can't believe I try to avoid the percentage at the bottom of the Kindle. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. I digress. I have been spending more time reading and trying to make an effort into just not being on my phone for many reasons. One being that I waste so much time on TikTok. It's crazy. And I think that a lot of it is just like, I don't know, after work especially. And I've talked about this with my therapist a lot. After work, when I'm stressed and like always on edge and high thinking all the time, because you're always on the go at work. When I want to come home, I don't want to stay on the go, right? I just kind of want to, I think rot is like the worst word you could ever think of, but I do want to just like sit there and not have to think about what I'm doing, right? So if I were to choose between scrolling on TikTok or having to go to the gym and like stimulate my body again, even though it's a different kind of stimulation, I think I would pass, to be honest, because that's just how it is. You're just so strong all day. And honestly, I have a lot of sympathy for mothers who also work like this, because I physically I can't do it myself. I just don't know. Like, I come home and I just don't want to do anything. So major props to all the mothers, all the parents, honestly, in general. But I have been trying to get off of social media for that reason. And also, I think that lately social media has been detrimental to me. And I think that it's been really affecting just my mood. I think a lot of reasons why, which I've talked about in many, many episodes of this podcast, but I just hate when I'm in a good mood and I scroll on TikTok, because I'm also very heavily affected by like other people's emotions. But if I am on TikTok and like I'm laughing, I'm seeing a funny video about like a recipe, and I don't know, like maybe even seeing something about the book that I'm reading, which by the way is like really creepy. It can totally hear me, I swear, I'm convinced. But I'm happy about that. I'm looking at that, and the next thing I see is like a sad TikTok about someone's dog dying. And I know, you know, like people listening are like, oh, I don't see that. Like, why is the algorithm tailoring to me? I mean, honestly, like, because of the fact that TikTok is so heavily into the algorithm and kind of calculating to everyone's personalized experience, I find it interesting that TikTok would want to make me happy one second and then sad the next. Like, am I that unhinged? Am I really that much of an emotional mess? Like, is this how my iPhone reads me? I swear to God, like, I've been thinking about it all the time. Like, even talking to my sister, like, I'm like, oh, I don't know why TikTok shows me these videos. And she's like, my TikTok doesn't show me that. And I'm like, well, that's good for you, because I swear, like, it messes me up so much. So that's really primarily the reason why I'm trying to get off it. And it's hard because when I get bored, in a sense, I kind of lean into things that cost money. And I'm always torn between this battle of like, okay, I have free time, how can I make it productive, but also like not spend $1 million. But it's hard. It's like a hard balance, especially with our generation in the 20s. Like, we don't necessarily tell ourselves to plan to save for things. And I think that's the hardest part, because like we tend to get lost in like the fun of it and then forget that there is still some piece, at least a little portion of what you make, that should go towards like saving or long-term goals. And the thing is, like, sometimes I feel like, especially in this time of our lives, I have so many questions about my long-term goals. Like, I don't necessarily want the same things every single day, or like now I could want this, and this, but like in 3 years, life could be totally different. And I think it's really hard because like you never know how much savings you're going to need in general. And I think that's the hardest part, like trying to find that balance. And again, like I said earlier, these aren't things that are going to be easily answered within like 3 months, 6 months, whatever. But that's kind of what I've been thinking about. But at the same time, like, there's also another part of me that's like, well, I work to make money. And why do we make money? To spend it. And I know that's not the ideal thinking for that, but it's true. You make the money to make use of it. And I think there's like the other part of that balance, that it's okay to spend on things like leisure, you know, fun things, going to concerts. I saw Chris Brown yesterday, and it was, honestly, I saw his concert for Heartbreak on a Full Moon. I think that was the title of it, but it was like years back. And that set list was so trash. I can't even, like, all I remember was going to the concert and being like, oh my God, that's it. Like, it was so short. But this one was actually the opposite. I was finding myself in this concert, like, thinking, is it almost done? Because it's really long. And his album, the 1111, the deluxe one, is like, I swear, 40 songs. But he didn't even perform all of them. He kind of just like did the classics too. But that's something I would 100% re-spend money on. I think going to concerts is so fun. But again, it like ties back into just like budgeting and trying to figure out if, you know, you have it in your funds, in your budget to be able to go. But I'm not just saying like spend hella money on concerts all the time and go to all that, but make the time to budget for yourself. And I think that was something I was talking about with my therapist quite a lot. Like, I budgeted for everything in my life when I was wedding planning, and I still am. I'm still trying to like readjust to things and kind of like put my money in different things now that it's not a wedding anymore. But I had so much trouble letting that money go into like a self-care folder. And he always asked me, like, because my therapist is a dude, he would always ask me and he'd be like, why don't you put the money in a self-care envelope or something for yourself? And I'm like, well, I already am doing this for myself. Like, the budgeting is for myself. And I don't necessarily need I don't need a massage. I don't need a pedicure. I don't need to get my nails done. There's so many things that I don't need, but at the same time, it's like something that your body could use. Like, even relaxing or getting a massage, going to, I don't know, like getting ice cream or something. Like, even that small reward, it doesn't cost like $200 like concert tickets do, or more if you're like talking about Drake or something. But it doesn't cost a lot to give yourself some grace and to give back to yourself, that I think that a lot of times we don't let ourselves have. And I think in this time too, when it's like always so busy, you never know. But yeah, I'm definitely going to make a lot of time this summer to just like do some fun stuff. I really missed traveling, and I missed like, I mean, I could have traveled, right? But you kind of have to be logical, and like you needed every cent to pay off what you needed to for the wedding. And it definitely puts you into perspective, because it really just humbled me, honestly, to like the things that I don't need and the things that I don't need to be spending on. And I think that really helps me a lot, because one, I don't think I realized how much money I spent on things that I could do myself or even make myself. Like, make meaning like Starbucks. I didn't need Starbucks, and I would go there all the time, like multiple times a week. And I still go on occasion. There's nothing wrong with that, but like, the coffee maker is there for a reason, and what better thing to learn than to like make your own coffee? And I think that that's one of the things, like, I feel like that's an easy thing to replace that you don't need to be spending money on, and it's really easy to like learn and pick up on. And then another thing is like trying to understand that free time doesn't mean you have to fill it with something to do. Like, I think that I associated myself with like free time and doing nothing with how bad it is for me to be scrolling on TikTok the whole time. But like, it's not a bad thing to just sit down and do nothing, which I still struggle with. Like, it's really hard to tell myself to do that. But when you look at it as less of you being lazy and more like you had a long day, like your day was mentally taxing, you deserve a day or an evening of doing nothing and not having to, stress out your brain again. And I think that's like it's such a cool way to look at your free time, because I feel like I just haven't been able to let myself do that. And I think it starts with just changing how you look at things, that kind of like negative to positive thought. And I think that helps a lot. So that's what I've come down to. And I think that even that has helped me kickstart just in general, like what I want to do with my free time. So that's kind of been on my mind. And then there's just a bunch of like things that I feel like I could maybe build on. I have sourdough starter. I'm trying to learn how to make sourdough. And I know there's people are going to make fun of me because it did start from TikTok. Yes, I will admit that. Like, it started from there, and I was like, I want to learn how to make sourdough bread. And it's things like that. And honestly, like, work's been so busy. I almost have been, I haven't had the time to actually be on my phone. And it's actually been great for me. Like, I don't scroll on TikTok that much or anything because of that. And that's why, like, I almost always think being busy is so good because it distracts me from the fact that I have these emotions that I tend to lean on when, I'm stressed and want to scroll endlessly. And that's why I have been making a conscious effort to like try to do things different than like sitting and loitering. But it is still a process. I will just say that. And there's still so much I can do with my free time that I'm still trying to navigate. But reading has definitely helped improve, just in general, my mental stress. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Aura Ring, and I use that for a lot of things. Like, one being, I'm getting off of birth control, not because I'm trying to have a kid yet. Relax, guys. I hate how hormones make me feel. And a lot of people, like, I feel like when you're in it and you're taking the birth control, like, you don't realize that there's things that change you. And I swear in my life, like, I've only been off of it for like 2 weeks and I feel like a totally different person. I want to just get back to just knowing how my body feels naturally and kind of like understanding my cycle. So the Aura Ring has been super helpful with that. It takes my temperatures overnight. I have to wear it at night. Honestly, it's a little bulky, but like, you honestly forget about it as time passes. So that's what I use it for. And then I also use it to just like, it tracks your daytime stress, which I think is so interesting. If I could look at it right now, like, I know damn well that my day is always full of stress. And I know that like that gives me insight, honestly, to just how I should be treating myself at night. And I think that has changed my view on myself so much. I think that like, because I can see that I'm quite stressed most of the day, I have been trying to make the conscious effort to like make sure I don't get stressed in the evening, and it has done so much for me. And even on like in the mornings, it'll tell you things like your readiness level, and it'll even tell you like, oh, you slept really well, you're ready to seize the day, like go do an intense workout. Or if you didn't sleep well, which I feel like you always know more when you don't sleep well versus like a good sleep, but it will tell you like, oh, your readiness was low, try to take it easier on yourself today so that tomorrow you have a better day. And I think like even those little insights about myself have been helping so much, and just like understanding my general body and like how it changes from day to day. So that's been cool too. I've been trying to like remind myself that all this free time is for mine to take, but like also I don't have to like direct it towards anything special in particular. And doing nothing has been doing a lot for me, honestly, because it's just been helping me like refresh and recoup. But now that I'm here and I spent a lot of time like relaxing, I'm just trying to figure it out, and it's just been like so many questions. Not for nothing though, it's like also a mix of like doing things on my own that I think I struggle with the most. And I've been trying to like think of things I can do by myself. And that includes even like, first of all, I moved closer to the shore and there's plenty I could do by myself around here. It's just like, honestly, getting that little kick, that mental kick to like get yourself to go. Like, I've had moods sometimes this week where I'm like, oh, I want to go to the coffee shop and like just sit there and work instead of at home. Or like, oh, I want to go to the beach and just sit there and read for the evening. And like, I have the thought, but I somehow can't get myself to go, if that makes sense. And I think I've just like had such a lifestyle growing up and in general, like always being with somebody, that I think even just like alone time, and that's also counted as free time, right? For yourself. Alone time is something I need to work on too. And reading has been so great, but also just like enjoying the summer itself, because well, it's not quite summer yet. Technically the first day is June 22nd, but I literally start summer after Memorial Day. But I've been I've been happy like moving closer to the shore because I think that's what gives me the happiness is just being outside. And I feel like the past few weekends I've been constantly like outside and by the beach bars and at least just reconnecting with like the social side of me because low key I've been slowly turning into an introvert, and it's so weird for me to even say because looking back in college and everything, like I was out, well, honestly, way too much, but like I do enjoy quality time. Like I think we've come to the conclusion at therapy that like that is my love language and that's what makes me happy is like spending quality time with people. But because of that, I think I forget to do that for myself, with myself, like even just go out for a walk or a new place. I constantly feel like I always need somebody to do that with, and you honestly don't. And I think that's like such a weird expectation for people our age. It's like, oh, that's a young person sitting by herself at a coffee place, like she doesn't have any friends, like so many assumptions about how one lives, because that's just the nature of human beings. We are very judgy, and I think that it puts a lot of pressure, at least for me mentally. I'm sure when I get there, like if I'm sitting in a coffee shop, literally nobody cares. Like they're there for their own selfish reasons. And I think that's where we have to like remind ourselves that like, okay, maybe they'll think about you for like a split second. Like maybe they're like, oh, that person's alone. Well, let me just get back to my Starbucks drink and talking and gossiping with my friends who are here about our lives. But it's things like that that like sometimes hinder me from doing things. And I think we have to like try to change that mentality about ourselves that it's okay to go to things alone. I think that sometimes you have to go to things alone. And I think that's it's just been a tough way to get me to go. It's like that little kick. I'm still missing that. And I just want to practice it a little bit more, especially because there's a lot of free things you can do around here, especially if you're by the shore, that you don't need people to go with if no one's available, and you don't even need to spend money and to just like sit outside. So I want to definitely take advantage of that. And I think that like ties perfectly with just like trying to save for things and being financially conscious of things. And ever since we've finished the wedding, I think there's just been other things I want to aim towards financially, but know that I'm still not there yet. And I think I'm still torn between like getting a house and then like also enjoying, because listen, I've been in an apartment for like 4 years, and I just I just thrive at the fact that I don't have to spend money on maintaining the place, which you do, but not as much as you would a house. And I just heard in a recent podcast too that every year that you live in a house, your costs for maintaining it increases statistically. It just keeps going up because not only is there stuff that like gets old that you have to maintain, but let's say you have a bigger place and you upgrade from an apartment, now you have a yard, and like that needs maintenance every single year. And then you want to add a shed, and that shed needs maintenance every year. And then you add like solar panels, and one of them breaks and you need to do that, and then the roof is broken, so you have to pay to do that, and then it gets dirty over like I think 3 years or something. You're supposed to get them clean. I don't know anything about houses, but I'm still currently in that thriving vibe of like staying in an apartment. And I really hate how apartments have such a negative stigma. I think that especially in California, New York, like the really expensive states. I was thinking about that at work the other day. Like I don't see people in New York being upset that they don't own a house. Like I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I haven't heard of anybody at work even complaining that if they live in an apartment, like they wish they had a house. I think it's actually quite the opposite, to be honest, because all I hear from my friends who own houses is just how much they pay for things. And it's like, I don't know, I think consciously it's more of like a decision of if you want to go down that road and expect that you're gonna have to give some stuff up. But honestly, like I've been super shocked with just how much everything actually is, especially in Jersey. I went to visit my father-in-law last weekend, and he lives in this beautiful house, and I'm not even joking, like how much it would cost in Jersey is probably double of how much it actually costs in Florida. And there's things like, the demographic, the I don't know, like the surrounding community, how safe it is, and like education. There's a lot of factors because, quite honestly, New Jersey has like, at least articles say, like one of the higher ranking states for education. But like at the same time, it's like sometimes I'm thinking about it like, oh, it would be nice to move to Florida. Why? Because one, it's affordable. We're still going to be close to some family. And I don't know, sometimes it's just the better option. But again, it's just things like that like sometimes, again, I don't know. Like one day I want to live in Florida. The next day I want to live in Jersey. The next day I want to just move to South Carolina because even South Carolina is beautiful. But more the reasons that having goals is okay, but like expecting them to change over time is like totally normal. And I think it's okay to like not be so solid on what those goals are. My whole life, I have told myself I want to be married by 28, which actually ended up coming true. I kind of manifested that for myself. So I'm pretty proud of myself, but married by 28 and then have my first house by 30. And one, I find it interesting. I did not put kids in that equation because I didn't want to be so hung up on like, expecting a child at a certain age and like shaping my whole life around that. But also, I'm just glad I didn't add anything else. Like getting married and buying a house is already two incredibly financially stressful things. And I'm happy I didn't like set in stone into that because I'm the type of person that like if I have a goal, I want to just keep at it. And if I don't make that goal, it's like a stab at the heart. Like I think that it's good to have goals, but like I'm learning to be a little more flex with them. And I think it's been helping me just mentally and financially, just like taking my time, but also enjoying the process getting there. Because we've heard these sayings all the time, like when you get to that end point, it doesn't feel as good as how long you've been like grinding to get there. And I think that that's what's so special about just like life in general. And I think just our age and this time period, it's just, we forget that and we get so rushy, especially with social media. Like this person's way ahead of you in, I don't know, in financial status. This person graduated before you. This person is doing so much better at work, and this person is making better relationships at work. And it's just like sometimes we get so hung up on everyone else, thanks to social media, thanks to Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok and Threads and X, since X is Twitter now, whatever, that we just don't feel like we're ever enough, which is crazy because we are enough and we have to remind ourselves that. And I think that, again, why I just despise social media, it's just such a toxic cycle. Like you feel good about yourself, you post it, you get all these likes, and then you see somebody else post something even better than when you posted, and it's just like such a toxic cycle that honestly, so like I don't know, sometimes it builds up on my chest too. So that being said, it's just like a ton of things that I feel like right now I just have to like reorganize and check what's important to me. And honestly, like thinking about it recently, what is important to me as of late is just spending time with people who are important to me, people who care about me, and people who just match the vibe, and I don't have to like expect anything from them as well. Which just ties into the fact that like I feel like we don't get in touch with all the things that make us happy. And I think sometimes we get so lost in what everybody else thinks happiness is that like sometimes it's totally okay to not post. Sometimes it's okay to not respond to people. And I've actually been struggling with that too, especially when I'm burnt out at work. Like sometimes I have issues reading my own body, and when I need to like take a break from social media or just like not use my phone. I think that I have so much pressure just personally. Like I don't think my friends would even care if I didn't respond for, a few amount of hours or something, just because I am busy or just need time for myself. And I think that that's like huge, especially now. Like, why do we have so many issues with not being by ourselves? And granted, if you're listening, you're probably like, I don't know how she has this issue, because I'm the opposite. I can't do anything outside of being by myself at this point. But I think we all just have that like thing that we fall back into that we're so comfortable with that it's hard to challenge ourselves and still, you know, put ourselves in interesting situations that, add thrill to life. Or I don't know, even just like when you're working and you kind of lose that passion for other things, especially like if you're going through a tough time or just going through it, or kind of numb to just life in general. It's really hard to get yourself out of that. And that's why I think like even having time to put on an agenda, or like forcing time for yourself that's not your normal thing. And it doesn't have to be anything extreme like, oh, go skydiving or something, but like even just like take a walk around the neighborhood, or sit at the park and read for a little bit, or just like going to get a massage or going to a Pilates class. There's so many things. And it's funny that I'm saying this out loud. Like I am still struggling to do them myself, but in the end, we will find time. That's part of it, right? It's part of the process, part of the journey. I feel like that's something my mom always says, like, that's part of it. I have said so many things. I've talked to her about so many life issues, changes, and the answer that I always hear is that it's part of it. And even just trying to find the answers or our purpose and what's the next like step in our journey, it's part of it. And I think at the same time, like we should embrace that and appreciate the journey, and just remind ourselves that like these answers don't have to be done today, and they don't need to be figured out honestly ever. If you're like that, it's totally fine if you never figure out the answer and just keep trying different things. I think that again, there's so much stigma on just being one way. And I find myself like, I don't get irritated per se, but I'm just like, why are there so many expectations, especially as a woman? Also, like an Asian woman, there's just a ton, right? And I've lived on my own enough to kind of like keep that separation of what's expected from me via Asian culture. But now I think I'm also getting swallowed by American culture, and just like what is expected of me compared to other people, compared to my close friends, my family. And sometimes I'm just like, who am I? Like, who am I as a person separate from honestly everyone else? And it's a genuine question. It will take time for me to figure that out. But all I know is that there's a few things that make me happy, and I just want to lean on that in the meantime until I figure out everything else. So that is it. And stay tuned, because I'm going to be reading all these books, and I will be talking about them, because I am 100% going to be starting a book series, at least on my website. Like I'm going to be talking about them. But honestly, like even keeping in touch with my music, video games, like just kind of lighting that spark again. And I think we go through these waves in life where the spark dims a little bit, then lightens up, then dims. And it's just, I need to reconnect with the things that keep that spark going. So stay tuned, and you will hear about these books when I'm done, because I can't stop thinking about it. I'm going to go and read right now because I just can't. So anyways, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will catch you all next week.